your brother. I think he's operated on people in St. George. Yeah. I'll tell you the last one. When you're island, then the islands get dry and dry out and you can track people. And then you're oriented. And then you're visiting. And well, the bad thing is people drive and I can go that close. And he was losing with, one of those masses. Yeah. But he was away part of it.
Isn't it time? Oh, Danielle's here. We're just waiting for Jimmy. Are you a singer? Are you a singer? Because you did that in nice, perfect pitch. Yeah. You did. My youngest daughter, it takes her a minute, but she will hear it. She can say, that's a beach. It takes her a minute. She doesn't have, it's not really perfect pitch, but she said, but nobody does that. I said, yeah, they do. Not everyone's as good as you. Maybe they have a anyway. Danielle, how are you? I think we will start. I think he is, but it's Jimmy Standard Time. Oh, it is Jimmy Standard Time. It's 10 after. You watch, he'll be here. Welcome, everyone, to our City Council meeting. We're just a few minutes slow. I think we will have Councilman Hughes here momentarily, but we'll get started. We'll begin with an invocation by Tim Martin, who is the, hang on.
Secretary General.
No, I was going to give you something better.
Secretary Admiral.
Yeah, there you go. That's better.
Secretary Admiral.
I was trying to grant something.
Yeah, because
Secretary
we rotate.
Admiral.
I was telling Councilman Larkin about the Interfaith Council. We've been 13 years. The first time when we first started it, we had elections, and Reverend Dr. Ralph Klingen from the Presbyterian Church became president. Pastor Jimmy Keston was vice president. I made myself secretary because he who controls the agenda controls the world. And I've learned that, from Christine. After that, we didn't have any more elections. But we have had new officers every 3 years. So, and thank you for your great support for our prayer over the city. We have these events. Next actually will be the National Day of Prayer in May that we'll see all of you participating in. So
You know what date that is?
it'll be May 8th. It's the May 7th, the first Thursday in May.
Okay.
So
Get it on my calendar.
at the Gardner Center, Dixie
Ci-
State.
Okay, very good.
Dixie State. So if you'll please join me in prayer. Our Father in heaven, we're so thankful this day to be part of this great community. We're thankful for those who are on the city council and city manager and our mayor. We're thankful for their great work. We pray a blessing upon all of them at this meeting as they contemplate the affairs of our community, that they'll be inspired to understand the wants and requests of the citizens, that they'll be able to balance the budget with the needs of making progress with the growth of our community, so that we all might continue to truly know and believe that this is the most wonderful place to live. We're thankful for the wonderful weather we've enjoyed. We're mindful of those who are suffering from the flu and other problems, and pray thy blessing to be upon our community, that we'll be able to avoid the illnesses that might slow us all down. Now, we are thankful that we can be here. We're thankful for this opportunity to be part of this process. We ask thy blessing upon all those who might participate. And this we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Tim. Michelle, will you lead us in the pledge?
I will. All arise, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated.
Okay. Well, again, welcome to everyone. Glad to have everybody here today. Couple things before we start with the written agenda. First of all, I believe we've got Scott Albrecht is here from Senator Mitt Romney's office. We'd like to have him come forward, say a few words of introduction. We're glad to have you here, Scott. Thank you.
Sure, I appreciate you taking just a minute to let me introduce myself. As mentioned, Scott Albrecht. I'm the West Utah Director for Senator Mitt Romney. I've been on the staff for about 4 months now, and just getting familiar with everyone, and wanted to introduce myself to the new council members and tell you congratulations and look forward to working with you. A couple of things. We are looking to open an office where Senator Hatch had his office, and we'll be doing an open house within the next 6 weeks to invite the public to come and see where we're at. And we'll be having an intern there most of the time, so the public can come and make sure they're heard. And then I'll be there as well the majority of the time. So we're very familiar with a lot of the issues that are facing Washington County, St. George City. We're very involved, in the Northern Corridor and the Lake Powell Pipeline discussions and the work, as well as the visitor study for Zions. And so we stand to support the city in all the efforts that they're pursuing, and hope that we can, most of all, get out of the way, make sure the federal government's out of the way, and then help you with what you need. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have or any requests.
Council, any questions or comments? Words of welcome? Of course, welcome. We're glad to have you here. I know you've been here for a few months, but
Sure.
Thank you. Did you say you came from Beaver?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I worked in Beaver County as their administrator and economic development director for 10 years. And so I'll still live there in Beaver and then travel down. And I cover from Juab down to Washington County, so I'm on the road quite a bit. So, but I'll leave my cards here on the desk, and I hope that you'll contact me.
Thanks. Council, any comments? Glad to have you here. Glad that the senator recognizes that there is life south of the Payson-Dixie line. And we have to repeat that once in a while just for good humor.
Yeah.
But it is a great place to be. Glad you get to be here.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Also, we have from the university, Dixie State University, representatives of Doc Utah here, Dr. Jarvis and also Carmen Wilson. Love to have you talk about Doc Utah for a few minutes.
Thank you very much, and let me thank all of you for your service to the community and to the region. And it's a blessing for me to live in a place where the different, at least from my perspective, the different cities, towns don't become territorial and actually work together. And the leadership of St. George in that, I think, is noticeable, at least to me. Maybe there's something going on in the back I don't know about, but
Nothing going on there.
I'm thankful for that. I've lived in other places where the quibbling among different jurisdictions just got in the way of everything. So thank you all for that, and for your support of Dixie State and your support of Doc Utah. This is the person that makes everything operate in my shop, Carmen Wilson, and without her we would just lock the doors and
She
go
is
home.
amazing.
We've left you a little bit of swag. There's a piece that we give to sponsors, and we're not really asking you to sponsor because you're already a lead sponsor as the City of St. George, but that gives you a lot of information about Doc Utah. And then there's a card there about the College of the Arts that gives you more information about how to get in touch with us if you want. It's sort of like a giant business card. And then there's a copy of our latest movie in a series that we're calling High Desert Chronicles, a series of movies that we have made, students and staff and faculty at Dixie State, about this part of the world. This Leeds movie, which we opened our festival with this year, has received a lot of acclaim, and so it's easily right now, I think, the most popular, if not the second most popular after My Father's Highway, in all the films that we've been producing about that. So hope you enjoy that. I found several episodes in there just hilarious, and so enjoy watching it if you haven't seen it, and laughing out loud at some of the quirkiness of the town of Leeds. It's a very endearing film. So I'm here to thank you for your continued support of Doc Utah. We finished our 10th year, and we're looking forward to our 11th year, and a couple of big changes are in the works. We are relocating to the Megaplex Main Street cinemas.
That's good.
So we'll go up from 4 venues to 6, and we outgrew Dixie State a few years ago, and Dixie State outgrew us. So many students that there was no way to park. And we've had a good run over behind the mall at the Red Cliffs, and we're looking forward now to a new relationship with Megaplex out at Main Street. And we've also shifted our date out of September to the first week of November. So this coming year, November 2nd through 7th. And we'd invite all of you to come out and enjoy the movies. 60 plus of the best documentaries made in the last 18 months. So we've already started receiving submissions for this fall, and we're excited about what we will show this fall. Don't know yet. That's the fun of it. Don't know. And if you're
Yet
like
to be determined, yeah.
if you're like me, you will fall in love with documentaries because they are beautiful and interesting, and above all, they are true. And the people talking and describing experiences are the people that experience those experiences. So it's not scripted, it's not an illusion, and that's the most powerful thing about documentaries. So thank you again. I'd be happy to field any questions that you might have.
Dr. Jarvis, did you say, was it November?
November
2
2nd
through
through 7.
Okay.
November 2 through 7. We're going to try and steer our way in the coming years around Huntsman, around the marathon, and now around the triathlons, and around Dixie's homecoming. So we'll be right around that end of October, first part of November, we hope, for a while. 10 years down,
sounds
we're
good.
looking for another 10.
It's amazing. I
Better than
remember the
ever.
first year that Phil Tuckett, came in and to talk about it with us. And were you here then?
No,
Not
that was
quite.
before my time.
Yeah. And before Carmen's, at least in that role as
Yeah.
assistant director, right? Is that what's on our card here?
Assistant Director of Professional Art.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yep, right. So I think it's been everything we'd hoped it would be and more. When you look at the attention,
exciting.
yeah, and the numbers of films that we get every year that have to be whittled down, right?
Yeah.
To what do you get usually submitted? Several
Between
hundred?
250 and
Yeah.
300 the last couple of years. And
And
so we've got a team of community members that screen movies, and those folks watch the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then we've got a team of professionals that screen movies. And so what we end up with is the best of the best. And Mr. Tuckett couldn't be here this evening. He's busy editing a couple of projects, one about Dixie's transition from D2 to D1 in football, and planning another couple of big projects that will find their way to this fall's DocUtah as well. So
Awesome. Well, we've enjoyed the films over the years. I know Jimmy Hughes got to really enjoy the one you mentioned, My Father's Highway, really named after his father.
I know it.
And
I know
other
it.
fathers, but it was really after his father. So that was really cool. I remember showing that on at Town Square, wasn't it?
Showed that on Town
Yeah.
Square, and it was a major event. And
It was so cool.
We still every year try and figure out how we can try to replicate that event,
Oh,
Mr.
yeah.
Hughes, and we haven't been able to yet. That was easily one of our high watermarks along the way.
Well, and it was so personal to St. George, and to Washington County. So
Yeah,
very important stories to tell.
there are lots of them.
Yep.
I think that's the beauty of documentaries. Sometimes they kind of start out as one thing and they take a life of their own, and that's just, they're fun to watch.
They
They
are.
really are.
They are.
So, good stuff.
Thank you.
Any other comments? We appreciate what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. for
Great to
what
be
you
a
do.
partner with.
We'll see you in
with you.
November.
Okay,
Not
we'll
sooner.
be there.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Carmen. Let's get to our printed agenda. Adam, any adjustments to the agenda?
No adjustments this week.
All right. So we have a consent calendar.
We do. These 4 items, as we've explained, these are administrative in nature. They've been found to comply with all city regulations. We have 3 awards of bid tonight, and then a number of different meeting minutes. And so unless there are any of these items that you'd like to pull off for individual discussion, we can do that. Otherwise, staff would recommend approval of the consent calendar as presented.
Council, any concerns with those items?
I don't have a concern now because I called Adam and asked him about it, but I don't know if it would be appropriate for us to just discuss, for the public's sake, what he and I discussed. Do you feel, you and I thought maybe it
Sure,
would be?
yeah, sure.
Okay for me to ask. So I called him just to learn for myself about the city's process in taking these bids, and I asked him, do we always choose the low bidder? Are these contractors all bonded? Just questions that were new for me. And
Yeah,
so if Adam doesn't mind answering that for everyone, I think it's educational and beneficial.
I'm happy to, and I think that's a great question. I was motioning to Scott Taylor, our water director, to come up. The question, if I remember correctly, was
It was about the precision contractors, the
With item
sand
C,
hollow, yeah,
correct.
item C.
You know, our policy is to accept the bid of the lowest qualified bidder. And oftentimes that is the bidder who comes in with the best price because, obviously we're trying to spend our taxpayer dollars wisely. There are times where the low bidder would not be awarded the bid. We usually try to substantiate why that might be. There may be a problem that we notice in the bid, or perhaps they haven't been able to provide us with the appropriate documentation on their insurance or their ability to be bonded, some things like that. In this case, with item C, you probably saw there was a significant gap between a couple of the bidders and then
Huge.
the other bidders.
That's
And
why I
we-
asked about that
We
one.
had this conversation internally, and we said, okay, what's going on with these bids? Are these low bids valid? We talked about that, and the deciding factor for us as staff where we felt comfortable recommending this awarded bid is one of those contractors in particular we've worked very closely with recently. We've got some very recent history with them, looking at their numbers, making sure that their cost estimates are accurate. Our engineers are verifying what they're submitting. Because of the strength of that contractor, their bid history with us, their performance, we felt like this low bid probably was a legitimate qualified bid, and that was largely the reason for our recommendation. Scott, anything that you would add on that particular item? And would it be safe to say then, I know we've had this conversation internally, but maybe for the benefit of the public, we feel good about the lowest bidder in this instance?
Yes. Yeah, thanks for entertaining that for my sake.
No, that's good. And again, it's always possible if you want to pull one out for some extra discussion anyway, we can do that and remove it from the consent calendar. So, or we can talk about things like this quickly and then move on to the vote. So, any other questions?
I will say that the consent calendar is the best thing since sliced bread, Adam. Thank you.
It's an invention of Adam
agree.
Lenhard. Actually, it's not his invention, but
Right.
we thought it was. We loved it. So,
And it really is good because we can then pull out the things that we need to talk about, and the things that we don't have to be just mundanely approved. And
No, I couldn't take credit for it. There's plenty of precedents out there for.
county has used it for years. We just typically, and you can always do it. If you have questions, you talk about an individual item on it. But it does help move through the more typically administrative. I didn't want to say mundane, but the administrative kinds of things. Sometimes it's mundane.
lest we get mundane, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Michelle. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries unanimously.
Now we're going to have a discussion about the interlocal agreement between the city and Washington County for the Ironman events, and Mark Morrison's going to lead that.
All right. Well, we've talked a lot about Ironman, and it's time to execute the agreement between the City of St. George and Washington County. Washington County interacts directly with Ironman, and they represent the whole area. And our agreement, this agreement before you today, is between the city and the county. And it's very similar to subsequent agreements that we've done. We've done 2 over the past decade, and this would be for another 5-year renewal. The terms for this agreement are basically 2020 through 2024. That's a 5-year period that encompasses 6 events. Instead of 5, remember in 2021 we have the regular 70.3 North American Pro Championship in addition to the World Championship. So there will be 2 events next year. One event, the World Championship, will be comprised of 2 races. So it's essentially 2 events put into one event. So it just kind of complicates how that works. I will just tell you the highlights that are outlined in the agreement. That's the use we guarantee. The city guarantees the use of town square. We agree to waive special event fees and vendor fees for the event. We provide emergency and coordinate medical services and other city services with Ironman in Washington County. We coordinate the traffic control. Lieutenant Sprague has spoken to you before about that, and he's done an excellent job this year coordinating the full distance Ironman. We also provide electrical and lighting services at Town Square as part of the event. We agree to notify the public about the event and road closures and share that information, disseminate that throughout the city. We do provide a value of up to $25,000 in-kind value per event. And then with the World Championship, we agree to provide $50,000 in in-kind value per event. And I will say that we exceed that just by way of the emergency personnel and our park personnel. We far exceed that value, but we feel it's a a great benefit to our community from an economic development perspective. That, in a nutshell, is the agreement. And again, it's for another 5-year renewal for 6 events. Any questions that I can answer? Legal has reviewed the document, and they're recommending approval, and staff has done so as well, and we recommend approval.
Any questions, council? Great. It's, we kind of gloss over this, but this is big stuff for us, especially when you consider the World Championship event in 2021. I mean, this is, as we've talked about it, this is our Olympics, really. It's huge. And we talked about it the other day, Mark. How many countries are we saying would be represented likely?
Approximately 110.
110 countries.
Yeah.
Probably all the states, or at least a majority of them. How many athletes? Probably
7,000 athletes, and at least 3,000 international athletes, and up to 25,000 people here for that weekend of the World Championship.
It's enormous. Yeah. The economic impact is probably 25 million, and this is essentially maybe 4 days, right?
That's right.
Roughly around 4 days. It's 2 days of races, a women's race on the 17th of September and a men's race on the 18th of September, 2021. We'll shut down the city, if you will, as much as we can that Friday for the first day, and it'll be a school holiday that day. We'll figure out how we do it with the city, but we're going to need all hands on deck and really kind of make it our Olympics, where we're all helping as much as we can and celebrating having the world here. So it's going to be cool.
Where does this compare to the World Senior Games?
Well, they have about 11,000 athletes come, but they come over 2 weeks. And that's 11,000 athletes. Some of those are, partners, but so they probably have, I don't know, they might have as many as 20,000 people come, but they're going to come over 2 weeks. Ours are going to come over 4 days. So this is a big deal.
Yeah, and they'll likely be here even beyond
Before?
that. Usually about a 2-week period. This is kind of their bucket list.
Some will even come another time.
Yeah, that's right.
And
Good.
Come see the place and train a little bit.
It's every bit as much about the place as it is the race. So we're excited about it.
Thank you, Mark. I'd entertain a motion to approve this agreement if you're so inclined, council.
Motion to approve the interlocal agreement between the city and Washington County for 2020 to 2024 Ironman events.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Michelle. I'm going to give the tie to the runner. Second by Danielle. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. This will be exciting. Okay, number 3.
Number 3, we've got a public hearing on some proposed budget amendments, and we're going to ask Deanna Berklasic to present those to us.
Just for Christina's sake, can I ask, am I the only one who has those two switched on my? Okay. I did download it. Okay, that's why.
Interesting.
Okay.
So am I next?
You are next.
You can always switch me, I don't mind.
No. Thank you, Deanna.
Okay.
I found you in here, Dee, so you're good.
All right, so the departments, we finished 50% of our fiscal year as of December 31st, 2019. The departments have reviewed their budgets, and we do have a few budget opening requests, and most of them are for new items, unforeseen, like new grants or unforeseen emergencies or new interlocal agreements that we have. So they're all very warranted. I am going to strike number 4 off the list. We decided to postpone that one until we get a little bit more information. So I'll start through the budget openings really quickly. The first one is for a new state grant that we got from the State of Utah Division of Arts and Museums for $25,000, and they will be purchasing cabinets for the city's permanent art collection with those funds. So we've got one-time funds and one-time expenditures on that. The next one is another grant from the state Utah Alcohol and Drug Free Committee for DUI enforcement. And we actually already get a $15,000 approximately every year. And this one, they're actually increasing it by $20,000 for the DUI, additional DUI enforcement, plus an additional $7,500 for us to buy some breathalyzer equipment, or excuse me, body-worn cameras. So that's for $27,500 added to the police department budget. Number 3 is, while we are renovating or reconstructing the dome on the Sand Hollow Aquatic Center, staff felt like we could take advantage of that downtime and do some renovations to the locker rooms, the women's, men's, and the family locker rooms, restrooms, and changing areas. And so that is for $70,000. We do have a good quote on that. And we do have some money available in the general fund to go ahead and do those and take advantage of that downtime. Again, number 4, we've postponed. And moving on to number 5, this is a budget opening in the city manager's department in the total of $18,000. And what this is to fund a apartment at the City View Apartments for new employees as we recruit them and bring them on board while they are searching for their permanent residence, for them to make that transition a little bit easier. So it's a short-term stay for those new employees relocating to the area. And we feel like that will be very beneficial for recruiting new employees.
And that would not be provided to them without cost. There would be a cost to help cover the city's costs in that. But we, like Deanna said, we feel like that could be we're losing a lot of them who can't find that real short-term housing. It's been an obstacle.
Yeah.
Yep, we talked about that. Good move.
Mm-hmm. And so some of those are one-time costs just to furnish the apartment, and then just some ongoing lease payments that eventually over time we'll see some revenues come in towards that. So number 6, that is probably a lot to look at. And what we're doing there is it's with the phase 2 and phase 3 of the city hall and the police building renovations and expansions. And originally we had budgeted for those out of the capital project fund. And we had budgeted the bond to be $11 million out of the capital project fund. Once we got further and determined that the CIB, the Community Impact Board through the state of Utah, would be the funding source for the bonds, they require us to use the Municipal Building Authority to issue those bonds through. The Municipal Building Authority basically acts as the owner of the buildings and the landlord of the buildings, and then the city is the tenant leasing the facilities back. It's basically a funding mechanism that we have to use. And we increased the bond amount from the 11 million to the 15 million. So although this looks kind of crazy with the numbers, that's essentially what we're doing, is we're moving it from one fund to another and increasing the bond amount and also the project cost from what we had originally budgeted for at around 11 up to the 15 that was presented to you earlier I shouldn't say this year, last year.
Mm-hmm.
Number 7 is, along with those, we do need to move into some temporary office space. And this is the estimate for the remainder of the fiscal year, is the $250,000 to relocate for those the remainder of this fiscal year. Number 8 and 9 are very similar. We are reviewing our master plan studies for both the transportation and the stormwater facilities, and we started those master plans in fiscal year 19. They have carried over partially to fiscal year 2020, so we're just carrying these funds over to this current year budget. And then number 10 is regarding the new Suntran route that will service Washington City. We signed an interlocal agreement with them, and it's effective January 1st of 2020. And they will pay what the match is. And so in some cases, the Federal Transit Authority pays 80%, the local match is 20%, and in other cases, The FTA pays 50%, mostly on the operation costs, and then the local match is 50%. So Washington City will pay their match, and the FTA will pay the remainder of this. And this is that budget opening just to accommodate the equipment and the additional personnel and gas and maintenance costs for those buses for half of this fiscal year. Number 11 is to budget for the pass-through of the increase in the solid waste service fee to our residents at 25 cents pass-through. Increases the residential garbage waste from $11.85 to $12.10. And again, this is 100% pass-through we'll collect, we'll pass that on to the solid waste district. And then number 12 is for our drug seizure fund, and they need to purchase an additional equipment for their body-worn camera or additional surveillance equipment, body-worn camera subscription, and they need to upfit a couple of new vehicles through our revolving lease program for their vehicles. That's $20,124, and they do have those funds available in their fund balance. So, and that is all I have. Any questions regarding those budget openings?
Council, any questions at all on any of those 11 items or 12 items?
I have a question on number 10.
Sure, let's step
so
back.
just looks like Washington City will reimburse us for that 6-month period. Is that an ongoing reimbursement? So just for the fiscal year, but next year?
That's correct. It's a initial 5-year term, and I believe that then we can renew that additional 5-year terms, and they will fully reimburse us for our costs to do that. Plus, they will put in I believe is it 8 years, over an 8-year period for the equipment, so that if we replace, so they'll be contributing to a repair and replacement fund as well, so that when that equipment needs to be retired after 8 years, we'll have already built up that reserve to go ahead and replace their equipment at that point in time.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Thank you.
I got a question on number 11 as well.
Okay, let's go.
How often do we see a rate increase from?
You'll soon see because you'll be on that board.
Right.
Okay.
But
I wanna
every couple
say,
of
is it
years.
every couple of years.
Yeah.
I think it's 2018, and we had a rate increase of 35 cents. And then this is a rate increase, the 25 cents in 2020. And I believe they're renegotiating that contract. And so we'll probably see about the same terms every 2 years with the rate increase.
You'll be part of council, those negotiations, obviously, and that will probably happen. This current contract expires in about 1 year, about 13 months. 12 and a half months. So we'll be talking about that in that board meeting, Solid Waste District. But it was a good question. Mm-hmm. The last time they had an opportunity, we didn't pass that, or we didn't pass along an increase to the cities. They elected to do so this year at 25 cents. So
Yes, 25 cents, and we do sometimes add an additional amount because we do all the billing and collections, and so, it's our employees, our postage, our mail and paper and so forth, so we will add a little bit on top of whatever their rate increase is. In this case, we're not adding anything to it, we're just passing through that 25 cents that they increased, and that's all we're increasing our rate by.
I'll just clarify, since we have the opportunity, this is for trash collection. This isn't tied to recycling.
Right.
And it'll all be tied together one way or another in new contracts within the next year.
Yes, this contract was long before the Blue Can recycling program came on board. So right now we have 2 contracts, the solid waste, the regular refuse, and then the recycling that will expire about the same time. And that's what Mayor Pike is saying, that they are in the process of renegotiating those contracts.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? We have the expert at the podium there. She's amazing. If you haven't already learned, you'll learn. She's really, thank you so much for all your effort to keep us on track all year, as well as, doing the budget, which has already started for the July 1, 2021, or 2020 to 21
We're-
fiscal year.
We're underway.
Underway.
But it's a team effort, not
It
just
is.
me.
Okay, council, I will, if you don't have any other questions, I will open the public hearing for any who may have input or questions on this item number 3 on our agenda today, with the consideration to approve amendments to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for your action or any other discussion.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion. We approve the amendments to the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget.
Second.
I have a motion by Jimmy with a second by Brian. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Greg, say aye.
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 I
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. And now on to number 4, I believe. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Mayor. Next 2 items on the agenda are conditional use permits. Number 4, consider approval of a conditional use permit to allow replacement of the existing AWI tower in the open space zone located at 845 East Red Hills Parkway. So this shows an overview of the area, the blue arrows pointing location up here on the parkway, freeway for reference. And a closer view, again, this is Red Hills Parkway. And right where the arrow's pointing is an existing tower. And you can see a little bit better in this enlarged view down below. That's the subject. Just quickly, the zoning is open space, and the general plan is public facilities. And again, the arrows point location just to orientate you. So I'm sure you've seen us many times, but this is the tower that's there. I'm going to jump to the report, just read a tiny bit here. And the existing tower was originally placed at the site back in the 1950s. At that time, it was a leftover piece of crane boom. It was established to aid in bringing television to Washington County. It's been there for about 70 years, and it's time for it to be updated. It's been an important service to the community, but has started to fail, and due to age and other factors, it needs to be replaced. The tower provides availability of television. It's also integral to communications between the city's network systems and also the regional airport. And again, as many as water departments, sites use it, and then the police department. So what is proposed, where I'm pointing the arrow, and I'll show you on another slide, is to put another tower right here. Basically, the request is to put another tower here, transfer equipment from this onto it, not exceed the height, and then for this tower to go away. There will be a few more items that will be added to it, and to keep the height down, it's proposed to be a lattice tower. And it's just a couple more views of it. You can see the guide wires holding it there in place. The property line's about right here, and it has to be 10 feet from the property line. It's less than that, but in part of this staff report you may have noticed the suggestion that was given to Planning Commission was to, because the city is buying this property and it's surrounded by city property, would be to merge the lots, and then it becomes a non-issue. Just make that a requirement that setback would go away. So to kind of illustrate that a little bit further, all of this area in here is city land, except it surrounds this site now, so you can envision if that becomes part of it, then there's no property line there. And Wico Site Management LLC owns the land shown here, but the city's in the process of purchasing it. And again, the tower is there. The engineering plans for the tower, for the lattice tower, are shown, and the footings for it. That has to be reviewed with a building permit and plan checking process. So again, proposed tower here, existing tower here, and here's where the building is. Property line's about here. Now a little bit of a site plan for it. The existing tower Because it's lattice, this triangle represents the footprint for the new tower. And then there would be a associated building with it for maintenance and equipment. And then it would have a wall fencing around it. But nothing is going to go out past this 25-foot setback. So I think that pretty much covers it. I'll just look quickly, see if I missed anything. I think I'll go to page 2 and tell you the results of the Planning Commission. Planning Commission recommends approval with the following comments and conditions. Number 1, tower height. Maximum lattice tower height is 80 feet. Number 2, tower color. Determine if it shall be painted or to be a metal finish. It was brought up at the Planning Commission meeting, which was just 2 days ago, that they'd like to have, I think it's called Pantene or Pantone color on it. Mark might be able to address that. 3, equipment shelter, as I showed on the site plan. Equipment shelter is approved for the site and shall meet setbacks. 4, enclosure, 6-foot high wall, CMU is required to go around it. Ordinance, this just comes back to the wireless telecommunications section of the zoning ordinance, and that's the section that's cited there. That'd be in compliance with that. 6, pretty standard, site plan review, application for staff to review. 7, they'll have to get a building permit. 8, meet the setbacks. And 9 was added to the Planning Commission 2 nights ago, that the old tower be removed, and they recommended 60 days. So you might want to talk about that. I would imagine 60 days maybe after the new tower's up, but we'll have to see how that is coordinated. And then finally, number 10, merge the lots. The rest of the pages just goes to the section of the code for the conditional use permit, all of the findings for it, and I won't read all those unless there's a question. And that concludes staff's comments.
Go ahead. Jimmy has a question.
Just a question on overall where that's going to become city property and there's a building there. I may have answered my own question here just reading through because it's strategically located to be within view of all these other peaks where there's other towers. But have we looked at the whole site in general and seen if there's is that still the ideal place to have it on the site? Right out there that close to the road, or is there somewhere else, being that there's going to have to be a tower there, that would be a better location or a better fit?
I can address that. That's a great question. We're looking at that entire site, all of that property up there, to get a new master plan. There probably aren't a lot of improvements that we would be doing immediately, but we do need a plan. If you've been up there recently, we got stuff scattered everywhere, and it's getting harder and harder for our vehicles to get out onto the parkway. So we need a plan there. We've discussed, and what you're likely to see is in the upcoming budget a request for some funding to help do some land planning. My understanding, and Mark can correct us if we're wrong, I do believe there's some infrastructure as far as the fiber coming in and out of that existing location that we will probably leave that tower exactly where it is, that to move it would be cost prohibitive, and we can probably work around it. Mark, is that accurate?
And the building will have to stay as well once?
No, not necessarily.
It really is in the perfect location. We'll use it as much as AWI or I guess InfoWest now.
InfoWest, yeah.
We'll use it, but there's a lot of infrastructure that comes into that tower site right now, some of which the city uses as well as citizens throughout the community. But I don't know that there's a better site on site than that location because it hits every peak from right there, and that's why it's been there for 70 years, is because it's just strategic in its location. So we would propose that it stay there, but of course we want to pretty it up a little bit, make it blend into the hill a little bit better. But that will be when the city purchases that property, that will be leased back to InfoWest at that time, and they'll pay a lease obviously to the city to have that, but it'll also be available for our uses as well. The tower's being slightly overbuilt in order to accommodate more equipment for our needs as a city, and it's strategic for us too. It's a great location.
Good.
Mark, sorry, will they, just to clarify what you just said, will leased back part of the existing building there, the office building, or just this service building that was presented?
I guess it's a timing issue, Mayor, in that if they're not ready to move out at the time we execute the sale, then they'll lease back the entire property
Okay.
from the city for a period of time. But at some future point in time when they do vacate, and we anticipate that being this summer, probably July or August, at that point they will only lease back from the city the 20 by 20 foot space where
Gotcha.
the tower is. Yeah, and then
Excellent.
the city will take possession of all the other buildings, outbuildings, garages, and so forth.
Excellent,
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions, council?
Well, as far as that old tower goes, that's really such a fun story and an example of Southern Utah ingenuity that they took that old crane and made that tower. So I'm thinking if we're just going to get rid of it, we should turn it over to some of our art around the corner artists and see what they can
See
make
what
of
Matt
it.
Clark does with it?
Yeah.
Well, Michelle had a suggestion too, the Smithsonian or,
Hopefully, we get 70 years out of the new one.
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty awesome. Well, I guess if there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion regarding this conditional use permit.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve conditional use permit to allow replacement of the existing AWI tower in the open space zone located at 845 East Red Hills Parkway.
As presented, essentially.
As presented.
Second.
Motion by Greg with a second by Brian. Any discussion? Sean, everything sound good from a legal perspective? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Numero 5.
Go. Number 5, consider approval of a conditional use permit to develop a 2.5-story building at approximately 1300 South Hilton Drive in the Commerce Point commercial subdivision. So here's Bluff Street, here's the freeway, here's Commerce Point that you're well aware of being developed. Across the street, this is an older aerial, is where the new Maverick is. And we're looking at the building tonight to be right here, Building 100. This shows zoning at C2, and this shows the conceptual site plan for where it would be. You probably noticed that this has a lot of stacked rock, and they've been building that corner up as they've been doing the grading out here, but this is for Building 100. And then just the site plan itself, an overview of the site. The landscape plan will meet or exceed city requirements, and we'll look at it even closer when we get the actual finished landscape plans that are part of the civil plan set for checking. Here's elevations, the front view, what you'd see from Bluff Street. And the elevations from the rear, if you're looking at it from Hilton. And the elevations, one is from Black Ridge. This is the north and the south. And the materials board is behind the mirror there on the floor if you care to look at it. The same's on a screen, but you can see a little bit better view as you look at the actual board. Staff was supportive of this. The Planning Commission does recommend approval. And again, this is part of Commerce Point. It's part of Phase 1, Lot 5, Building 100, a 2.5-story building. And I think that concludes staff's comments. The findings are in here. I won't read those. They're quite lengthy, but it's been looked at, and the Planning Commission does recommend approval.
Any questions on this, council? Did have some announcements at the of specific tenants that would be at this center. So, any concerns?
Do we know
Greg?
can we ask, do we know the end users of the building? Do we know who's going in it, or?
I don't. This one's an office building. At the Economic Summit, they were showing some of the
Well,
other
I heard Verizon was one of them, so,
maybe.
you know. But most of what I heard were restaurants, and so I don't know if there are any restaurants in this or if this is all office.
This is all office.
Yeah. think the
There's-
other ones were more the restaurants, huh, and the Chick-fil-A
And I think even the Verizon store was more of like a retail store.
over on the other
Yeah.
side instead of office. Yeah.
And this one was recently approved, and you can see kind of by the slashes there, it's multi-tenant. But they did show at the summit, they kind of flashed up as a teaser and showed a lot of different
Right.
businesses. that
But
are
I
going
think,
in, several
those
restaurants.
were probably all in the other two buildings.
Correct, not in this building.
It does make me think, semi-related, I really think we ought to look at renaming Hilton Drive. I really do, to something other than that, because there hasn't been a Hilton there and probably won't be. So anyway, that's for another day, but we'll get back to that.
Crystal Inn Drive?
I don't know if we dare do that, right?
Wyndham Garden Inn Drive right now.
Yeah.
There's always Jimmy Hughes Drive.
You know, someone suggested that. Yeah. I think it was Quentin.
Yeah, maybe.
If there are no concerns or other discussion items on this, I would accept a motion if you're ready.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use permit to develop a 2.5-story building at approximately 1300 South Hilton Drive in the Commerce Point Commercial Subdivision.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Michelle with a second by Danielle. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Hey, really quickly, Mayor, why?
Yeah.
This just reminded me, the conditional use permit, a lot of these we see are detached garages. And we've kind of looked at trying to get those approved. I actually had the unfortunate experience of seeing one of those approvals that probably is one out of the 100 that probably should have been, that is why we probably do those as conditional use permits. These poor people, because we allow it to be on the property line and because we allow it to be so high, their backyard is now a cave. So I just think we ought to take a look at that as we're talking about that, and we have talked about it in the past, and make sure the 1 out of 100 doesn't come up again if we can help it. And if you all have a chance, I'll give you their address and you can go see it. It's just one of those that we ought to look at, because I thought they were just being over dramatic until I went and saw it, and then I thought, oh.
John, you want to
But
respond? Thanks, Jimmy. Good.
Definitely something we can visit. The CUP for heights for accessory structures, we put a cap on it, so it's 20 feet, and so those don't come to city council any longer. We can pull that up and kind of see what the height is, and we can visit that, and maybe the height at 20 feet, maybe it's too high.
Too
We
high.
need to look at, but we can definitely go and take a look at those to give us some context on what that 20 feet is.
this one might be a good case study, because obviously we've done a lot of these and there's never been an issue, but this
Yeah,
one,
we have.
And maybe depending
you
on
feel
what
bad for them if you go there.
or maybe depending on what the grades are.
They're on a corner and it's a walkout basement, and so then they're on the corner, so everything, their whole backyard's over here, and then there's the garage right there.
Yeah.
And it's 20 plus feet, and it's right on the property line, and it's basically they're in a compound.
And
Yeah.
we can look at, as you move further inside the property, the taller it goes. And so if you do want to build close to the property line, then the reduction in the height goes. So there's a lot of things we can look at mitigating that if that's a concern of council.
And John, couldn't we also look at the neighboring, at least dwelling unit, the residence, and say maybe there's a distance requirement from that, and that
We can.
might help too. But
Yeah.
if you all recall, we had a lot of debate about
We
this
did.
because we were trying to save the council
Right.
from having to look at all of these, and you remember
Right.
how many there were, so it needs some tweaking.
We almost had them every meeting.
We did.
Right, and that was my point, because most of the time, it's just fine, and then as I've seen this one, I went, ugh. I could understand now why you might be concerned.
But staff could handle still most of those if they knew
can.
what we wanted
Right.
to
Yeah,
have watched. You know,
You
condition.
guys set the rules and we'll follow
Yep.
the rules.
Well, it probably didn't help that once the neighbor tried to talk to the other neighbor, he's like, well, I got an approval, so meh, So that doesn't help either.
Yeah.
The city said I could do what I want. Right, right.
Nobody's allowed to say neener, neener, neener.
Yeah, put
We'll
that
write
in there.
We'll write that in.
Okay.
Anyways, food for thought.
Adam, anything else? I don't have any appointments today. We'll go through reports in just a moment. I believe we will need a brief closed session. Okay, just brief for personnel, Adam? Okay.
Probably also for, I was going to say real estate. We can wait.
Okay. Okay, so let's go to reports first before we do that. Anything, I'll start with you, Danielle. Anything to report on from the last week? Hasn't been long, I know.
Yeah, it's been. No, I don't. I met with the art council for the first time, and that was a lot of fun. And Gary was there, and his first time as moving into that
Museum,
space.
to the museum director or whatever.
Yeah, so that was great.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
I will mention that although I gave each of you the assignments, your assignments for boards and commissions, I missed one. Christina let me know about, so I will follow up and make one more assignment, and then at the next meeting we'll just read through those so it's on the record what everyone is assigned to. It doesn't have to be done with a motion or anything, but I just would like it to be kind of on the record what we're all assigned to. So we'll do that in the next meeting. So thank you. Appreciate you going to that. Jimmy, anything? DTEC was canceled this week, so.
Yeah, Housing Authority was canceled as well. We did have a Switchpoint board meeting. Things are going very well at Switchpoint thanks to the fundraising efforts, thanks to your efforts, Mayor.
Did you get my letter okay?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you for that. Thanks for John's efforts. We're in a pretty good spot right now moving forward as far as our funding has gone. We've got a lot of private fundraising that's been happening. So it's been, we're in an exciting spot right now. Hey, we are in the state, the place that everybody wants to say, how are you doing it? There's some issues in Twilla right now. They're all but begging us to come and run their shelter, to help them build a shelter and run it. Seriously.
Wow.
Because they're saying, everybody's saying you know how to do it, and so we're giving them a lot of feedback, and it's been good. So things
Jimmy,
are going
can I
good.
say, wouldn't you say that we're so blessed to have Carol Hall?
Oh,
now?
yeah.
She's a miracle worker.
That's our challenge moving forward, is to duplicate that.
I wonder if we could get her to be a little more energetic.
Right.
Yeah, she's pretty low key.
Because the board mostly is saying, hey, whoa, slow down a little bit, would you?
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yep. And Riverwalk is
Yes.
moving along.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't been out there going
Yeah.
along, it's going up. Very pleased with Bonneville and their knowledge on how to do what they do, and knowing that because this is a tax credit project, it has to be done on time and on budget, and they're making that happen.
Excellent.
Pretty impressive. So, good stuff.
Thank you. And you also, did you have a local homelessness coordinating meeting?
We postponed that until, we did. We have point in time count coming up.
That's right.
Next week. That's very crucial as well, because that's where we count. And I think we talked about this in a previous meeting, but that's where we have a count that goes into the state that has to do with our funding from the state level based on the number of homeless we have. So they take a 3-day period of time and try to count everybody who is without a home. So that's coming up next week. So the police department's going to be helping with that. Part of that process is to go out like in the wee hours of the morning and find those people who are camping and ask if they're homeless. So that can be a little bit dangerous sometimes. And so,
which night is that? Do you know?
I think we'll be doing it some of every night of those 3 nights of like the 20. Where's Shalane?
Is it the last week?
No, it's.
Or is it
I
next
believe,
week?
Yeah, 22nd runs in my mind.
That's the middle of the week, so could be.
Yeah, I believe it's like the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. I'll have to find out.
Will you let me know?
Yeah, I'll let you know. Because everybody was worried about that, I volunteered to go out in the middle of the night.
I'd like to volunteer too for one of them, so I'll coordinate with you.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
I would not like to volunteer.
and as you know, Sherlane's kind of, I sit there and act like I'm in charge, and then Sherlane makes sure that all happens. So if she was here, I'd like to give props to her, but she does really good at that.
She's doing great. Yeah. Thank you, Jimmy. Michelle?
Nothing, haven't.
Haven't
have
met with
some,
anything yet?
no, next week.
Brian?
So David Cordero and I went to the Veterans Coalition meeting this week, and there are a couple events coming up. The Veterans Resource and Benefits Fair will be held on Tuesday, January 21st, out of the Ivans Veterans Center out there. And then Doc Utah will also be putting on a film for veterans, a Vietnam film that they've done, January 31st for 6:30. It's $10, and you do need to reserve seats prior to going, and you go to docutah.com.
Brian, is that for the veterans or a fundraiser for them? So like can we get tickets and go? Is that
Yes,
what? Okay.
it's a fundraiser for
Fundraiser, okay.
And it is at the Megaplex on Main Street, Megaplex Theater.
Thank you for telling us about those. Anything else? Greg, anything yet?
Nothing to report this week.
Okay. There will be soon. We're just getting going with January, right?
That's right.
Hitting our meetings. And I don't have anything else. Sean, Adam, do you have anything to report? Okay. Then I would, if you're so inclined, council, I would entertain a motion to go into a closed meeting for, how should we phrase it?
Mayor, that would be for the, to discuss the character and professional competence or physical or mental health of an individual.
So moved.
We have a motion by
Second.
Michelle. Do we have a second by Brian? Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, starting with Danielle, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. We'll go into closed session. When we go out of come back out of closed session, we will adjourn, just so the public is aware our meeting will be over at that point. Thank you.